Do you think Lance Stroll wants Fernando Alonso as a teammate? Or was his attempt at launching him into the grandstand in Austin his way of saying he isn't welcome at Aston Martin? Whatever he was trying to do, it was a terrible error that cost him a rare points finish this season. Is it time for Aston Martin to be done with him? Or does Lawrence Stroll love his son more than winning? Let's check out what went on at the United States Grand Prix. With 6 seasons in Formula 1 under his belt, Lance Stroll has always been a controversial member of the grid. He's bagged 3 podiums during his career and finished as high as 11th in the championship in 2020. Though, the fact he did that in a pink Mercedes means it'll always be remembered controversially. He's only ever beaten his teammate once over the course of a whole season. That was Sergei Sirotkin in 2018 when driving at Williams. Sirotkin was gone from the championship at the end of the season, never to be seen again. The pair finished 18th and 20th overall that year. Not exactly a dominant display over his teammate from Stroll. It was the following season that Lance moved to his father's team, Racing Point, where he's done fine. I'm not here to completely bash him, he has done okay at Racing Point. He scores points with relative regularity, he's never painfully unimpressive. He just does okay. But when you think of Lawrence Stroll, you don't think of someone who's happy to settle for okay. He's a winner with a winning mentality. So why is he settling for okay when it comes to one of his drivers? Obviously, it's because it's his son. It was a rhetorical question. Lots of people have leveled accusations of pay driver at Lance Stroll, and they are true. But half the grid are pay drivers in one sense or another. This season, though, he's been thoroughly underwhelming, while Sebastian Vettel has been showing what is possible when you put a good driver in an Aston Martin. And the incident with Fernando Alonso at the Circuit of the Americas should really be the last straw. The 23-year-old Canadian was just 7 years old when Alonso won his first Drivers' Championship in 2005, beating McLaren's Kimi Raikkonen, with Alonso then embarking on a season-long battle with Ferrari's Michael Schumacher to clinch his second title in 2006. It was during this time that Stroll viewed Alonso as the villain of the story, as the then Renault driver denied Schumacher a record-breaking 8th World Championship. There is quite a large age difference. Stroll is still one of the youngest drivers on the grid, with Alonso the eldest at 41 years old. Having spent his childhood watching Alonso go toe-to-toe with his hero, Stroll laughed at the prospect that he'll be teammates with the bad guy from that time. I watched Fernando on TV in 2004, 2005, 2006, when he won his titles and was fighting against Schumacher, Stroll said. I was a fan of Schumacher. Alonso was the bad guy in my eyes. I was 6 years old and he was the bad guy, like in the movies. But he was always super exciting to watch, and he still is. He's one of the best drivers. He's still very lively at around 42 years old. Alonso will be 42 next July. The defensive move Lance pulled while trying to block off Alonso has made him the bad guy in the eyes of many fans. Valtteri Bottas lost control of his Alfa Romeo on lap 17 in Austin, Texas, spinning into the gravel, beaching his car and forcing the safety car out. Till that point, Lance Stroll was actually having a pretty good race. He was running in third from lap 1 before the faster cars behind him caught him up. With the field bunched up as the safety car came in, Lance had the Alpine of Fernando Alonso right behind him. Alpine have had the 4th fastest car this season, far better than the Aston Martin, and Alonso put that pace to good use coming down the main straight. He pulled out to make a routine pass on Lance Stroll before the Canadian decided to try and defend by filling a space that Fernando was already in. Alonso rode up the back left wheel of Lance Stroll, flying through the air before coming back to the track, hitting the wall and limping back to the pits. Stroll's car was destroyed and sat stationary in the middle of the track. It was one of the most ridiculous defensive moves that I've seen in a very long time. There was some karma in the fact that Stroll had to retire while Alonso managed to continue though. The move epitomized everything that's wrong with Lance Stroll as a driver. It was the kind of late defensive move that drivers learn not to do in F4, not 6 seasons into F1. Incredibly dangerous, completely unnecessary, and just downright petulant. The worst thing was he tried to defend himself after the race. I mean, I definitely moved late, but there was a big difference in speed. I was judging more or less, kind of picking where he was behind me, but it's not like I hit him on the side of his car. The impact is still his front wing to the rear of my car. I gave him plenty of room on the left of the track, so it's not like I squeezed him or anything like that against a wall. He could have moved earlier and went more to the left. He didn't have to get so close to me either. So there's a lot of different ways you could look at the incident. It was a shame. It was close wheel-to-wheel racing and unfortunately just made contact. Stroll said the crash didn't make any difference to their relationship. I don't look at it that way. We're racing drivers. It can happen in a race, he said. I would be interested to know Fernando Alonso's real feelings about it. Not so sure he would feel the same way. Fernando Alonso was lucky to escape with nothing more than a few aches and pains as he landed heavily, having been sent airborne by Lance Stroll. A meter or two more to the left in his landing and he would have been halfway up the barrier. An impact that could have had more severe consequences, potentially even flipping his car. Stroll was given a 3-place grid penalty for the next race as he retired as a result of the crash. Had he continued, it would have been a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision. Will Buxton summed the whole thing up rather neatly in a tweet. Idiotic from Stroll, utterly stupid. Couldn't agree more, Will. But why should this be the final straw for Aston Martin? Why should they finally be done with him? Well, apart from trying to kill his new teammates, he's shown again that he isn't the driver to help this team push on. Vettel managed to finish 7th in Texas. Stroll was only a position behind him when the crash occurred. They could have had only their 3rd double points finish of the season. Those points would have lifted them above Alfa Romeo in the tight battle for 6th in the Constructors' Championship. Aston Martin have worked hard to get their car competitive this season, and Vettel is reaping the rewards of that. Stroll, on the other hand, lacks the racecraft necessary to do the same. With so many incredibly talented drivers waiting in the wings of Formula 1 at the moment, it must surely be time for Aston Martin to give someone else a go. From Alonso's side, being wiped out by your new teammate and the son of the owner must be infuriating. But he can't exactly call out Stroll in public. That wouldn't be a great start to a winter of team bonding sessions. Alonso said over the radio after the crash that it was a very late move. But after seeing the stewards, he put it down as a racing incident. Honestly, when you see the thing on TV, I think it's a racing incident, to be honest, said Alonso. We moved basically at the same time to the left, and that was the trigger of everything. So I think it was a very unfortunate moment for everyone. You don't have a career as long as Alonso's without knowing how to play the politics game. Alonso admitted the crash was not nice to experience, revealing that he feared his car was heading towards the fence on the left-hand side of the track. I thought that I was much more on the left, and obviously if you catch the lateral fence, the metallic one, then you spin in the air 360, said Alonso. You see this kind of accident a lot in IndyCar, and they're quite dangerous. I thought I was ended up on that fence. Then when the car landed on the track, I thought, okay, this is all safe. Lance Stroll will continue on indefinitely at Aston Martin, probably until he's too old to drive in the sport anymore. It's a real shame for the team because when you have Sebastian Vettel as a driver and then Fernando Alonso, you really want someone who's going to learn from them. Having driven with Seb for 2 years, you would think Lance would have pushed on and improved as a driver thanks to the wealth of knowledge he could have been gathering from Vettel. This incident shows that he hasn't done that though, and I doubt he will do it with Alonso either. Want to know more about what's going on in F1? Then click the link on your screen and I'll see you there.